Hey folks, Objectively Dan here. I want to tell you guys about a Christian evangelist from Texas named Shane Pruitt. He's come out and publicly condemned Taylor Swift's new album as an insult to his Christian beliefs. He maintains that her songs are too graphic in nature and can lead good Christian children down the path of worshiping Satan if they're listening to her music. And he also says that Swift is elevating herself above God through her lyrics, as if that's even like a thing people can do. So obviously his comments have sparked a large debate on whether or not Christian parents should let their children listen to the leading pop artist of today. But of course, that's nothing new, right? I mean, this goes centuries back. In fact, even Augustine talked about how music shouldn't be more enjoyable than the worship of Christ. And I want to know from you guys, do you think Taylor Swift's lyrics are satanic or not, like even remotely? I mean, if you do, I love to talk to you because the show is starting right now. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. We talk to people about what they believe and why. And I'm serious. If you want to talk to me, you can. You can call the number that's on the screen below. It's 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. And we'd love to have a conversation with you. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, I always try to have a special guest. This week is no different. It's Kevin Bolling, everybody. Kevin, welcome back to Truth Wanted. What's going on?
It's great to be here, Dan. I'm glad to be on with you again this week. So
yes.
Yeah, no, things are going good. So, our year is really focused on the school year. And so as, most parents and students know, finals are for most campuses are just ending. So for us, it's a good time.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, if you want, maybe you should introduce yourself a bit because you're talking about schools and stuff here. And maybe for folks who haven't seen you on the show before, tell us, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. I am the executive director of the Secular Student Alliance. So we're a national nonprofit who works primarily with college students, but also high school students, middle school students, now elementary school students, non-religious students, and really helps them come together, find like-minded friends, be proud about their identity, and you're talking about the separation of state and church, and then really sort of living out their activism. What's important in their lives? What are they passionate about? And really living that out to make their communities better places.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely want to talk a little bit more about the SSA and some of my experiences with it as well, and like why it exists, especially with recent events going on right now. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, we have to talk about the We Want the Truth segment, folks. Every single week, we're asking you guys a question or a prompt or just something that you can respond to, and then we're going to pick our favorite three answers. Last week, we asked, what's an instant red flag? And we have our top three answers for you right now. Number 3 comes from Allison Jones, who said, an instant red flag is someone claiming the Bible is good when most of it is shitty or straight up nonsense. And I agree. If you're if you're on the dating scene and someone is saying just the Bible is good, that's a red flag for me. If I was ever to go dating again, that's going to be an instant, no for me. And I think Kevin would probably feel the same way, right, Kevin?
It's amazing how many people say, oh, the good book. And I was like, rape, violence, killing, like murder. It's just full of it.
It's not great. It's not great. That's for sure. Number 2 is coming from Single Digit Driven, who said, instant red flag. This offer is only for a limited time. You need to decide now. And that is so true. It's definitely like an obviously big sales tactic that's used like in subtle ways too sometimes, recently for me it's like, pre-order bonuses for video games and stuff, right? Everybody's always like, oh, if you can't get the extra stuff unless you put $60 down on a game that you may not even like. I don't know, that's like a personal thing. Obviously the video games are the biggest deal in the world, but it does matter, okay? Because why not? Anyway, yeah, definitely kind of scummy. Don't like that. And our number one comment comes from Chuck Gatos, who says, an instant red flag is when any claim starts with quantum theory tells us. And yes, that is so true, because obviously there's very smart people that actually do work in quantum physics and can tell you a lot about quantum mechanics and how all that stuff works. But anybody who doesn't actively do that stuff for a living, trying to tell you about quantum mechanics is a red flag. That goes for me too, by the way. Okay. I don't sit here and lecture you guys about how quantum mechanics works. I only debunk it when stuff comes up, because I am not a physicist, let alone a quantum physicist. So yeah, anybody that's telling you about I don't know, just the Copenhagen interpretation, or anything like that, just run. It's not good. It's not worth your time. But anyway, that is going to be the truth. We want the truth segment for this week. The prompt for this week, though, or for next week, is going to be, what's your guilty pleasure? Which, kind of a spicy one. Potentially, I guess. What's your guilty pleasure, folks? Give us something that obviously we can read on the air. Okay. We are only going to be picking the top 3 favorite ones, but Kevin, I'll ask you right now, what's your guilty pleasure? Do you have one?
Yeah. So, well, and a couple of things came to mind when you said that, and none of them are X-rated.
Good.
So I think like my legit one is like really good macaroni and cheese. So, but not like nothing box. It's got to be from scratch. Like, and if you claim it's really good, because I've been at many a restaurant, they're like, no, we have the best macaroni and cheese, and I'm like, it better not be dry. And so if it's dry, it's not good mac and cheese.
That's a good one.
So yeah.
For me, this is more like almost like an OCD trait for me, but it's something I do. If I'm at a friend's house or something and I'm on one of their electronic devices, I always check latest update on anybody's software. I don't know why. I just have to do it. I have to know, because it just drives me crazy when it's not. And that's the thing I do. I will secretly, if I'm working on my parents' phone or something because they got a problem, first thing I do, are they running the latest version of iOS? If not, I gotta fix it. I don't know. That's just like a weird thing. That's less of a guilty pleasure thing and more of just a weird thing. So I'm just kind of telling on myself right now. But anyway.
Well, that could almost be your red flag if they're not up to date.
Might be a red flag.
That could be your red flag too.
If you're not running the latest, I mean, there's lots of reasons why you wouldn't want to run the latest version of something. But if it's just out of like you don't know how to do it, I gotta fix that. I don't know what that is. Anyway, tangential topics aside, I want to go back to you, Kevin. So Kevin, I first of all, love Kevin, and I love having him on the show because I love Secular Student Alliance. It is an awesome organization, one that I am happy to be an alumni of, and I love getting the chance to talk about it every once in a while. Those of you longtime listeners know one of the most successful fundraising events we've done on this program was for a Secular Student Alliance chapter, and I'm quite proud of that. And I love the organization, Kevin. So Kevin, what's been going on with SSA recently?
It's been a busy year, which we've been really happy about. So lots of new chapters starting. And it's sort of still coming out of COVID, and this year was really been sort of that rebuilding year. And as we have more and more students and young people in the United States who are identifying as non-religious or nuns, more and more, students are finding us. And I think as we've continued to see the crazy increase of Christian nationalism, and just tearing down that wall of separation between state and church, I think more and more students and young people now, not just even if they're not religious, just are really concerned about this. So we've continued to see that the students have been really busy in programming on campuses with that issue, with what's going on in the Middle East, all sorts of topics. The fall of Roe and women's healthcare, so trans rights especially, and what's been happening across the United States. So they've been really, really super active. So for us, finals, we had our good secular spring break. We were back in Florida helping rebuild after the hurricane, and right now we have our scholarships open, so for student activists, and then our summer conference is less than a month away.
Yeah, Yeah, that's an awesome thing that you guys should check out too. If their SSA is kind of doing a thing right now where you can actually help get a student to go to that conference. So if you're interested in helping in that, I think we're gonna have links to that in the description. But just go to the SSA website for more information, and we'll probably bring that up later because I do have a quick story about the SSA Leadership Council. I told Kevin I had a story. It's really not that big of a deal, but I was happy to attend last year as a speaker, as an alumni, and also talking to the folks about how to do their own sort of internet media, right? Like and my main focus, I think, it was kind of a panel discussion. I thought you were gonna make me do like a whole presentation. I just had to do a panel. Panels are fun. I'll do panels any day of the week. But I try to emphasize, yeah, if you want to do this, don't use your real name. There's a lot of things you got to worry about, but it can also be really fun and really rewarding, and you can make a huge impact on things. So I'm happy to be there. And when you go to a conference like this, it's so great because everybody that's there, obviously it's college kids. So a lot of, I don't know, being surrounded by college kids and stuff who are really passionate about this stuff, there's an energy there that's really, really hard to miss. And it's such a super inclusive group. I really challenge folks to find a more inclusive group than at least the SSA Leadership Conference, if not your local chapters. You have people from all kinds of walks of life. Name a disability, somebody probably has it there. It's really just everybody who has come from all these different backgrounds coming together for very similar causes, and may not necessarily all identify as like atheist or agnostic, by the way, just folks who are really passionate about separation of church and state issues and kind of everything that goes along with that. And so it's just a really, really neat thing to see. But the story I had was just very brief. I had heard from my fiance who was there at the conference that, Kevin, you were talking to somebody, I think outside of the bathroom or something, and I think it was a girl that was wearing all black or something, and I think you made a comment saying like, that's kind of the color of this conference, isn't it? Because like you always have, everybody's like dressed pretty alternative, right? Everybody's got like piercings and stuff, and I love Kevin because Kevin looks like he could coach high school football in Texas. Like, look at him. He's got the thing right now. Like, Kevin is just the most, dude, you got that look. Like I would not expect you. I would not pin you as the guy leading a conference for Secular Student Alliance just based on looks alone. You're not an alternative looking dude, So I don't know. I just thought that was really funny.
In high school, I did have I had the non-symmetrical haircut, and we used to go in the art room and paint my hair to match my outfit. So no, I've never been, I don't think, that wild and crazy, but I've had a little fun.
Yeah, no, nothing. Again, I love Kevin because he can take a joke like that. But seriously, when you go to this, it is the most alternative kids around as well. I will say that everybody's just rocking out their personal flair, and it's awesome because I know when I was a student in college, but particularly in high school and middle school, it was not okay for me to dress like the way kids at that conference are wearing. It was not okay for me to talk about issues that the kids at that conference were able to talk about. There's definitely I grew up in a culture that really repressed a lot of that really personal expression of identity, and also just like personal expression of opinions on really big topics. And one of the reasons, again, why I love SSA is because it provides seriously a real safe space and a real inclusive place for students. Again, more so than any other organization I've ever worked with. So that's why I always am supportive of it. And I love that you get to work on that, Kevin. It's really great.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And I remember your conference. The first time I met you at a conference in Ohio, and I think yes, our conference is extremely diverse in the students who come, and that's fantastic. But I think the interesting and the cool thing for me is how quickly like almost every single student finds like that similar bond with another students, and like the differences don't matter. They're like, we're here for this, and this is what is important, and it's so good to be like with people like-minded people and people who think like me, and that click happens. I think so quick when people coming in.
Yeah, and I think especially too, You have a lot of chapters that are set up, like in Texas, for example, where there are a lot of conservative groups. I know personally on the UTSA campus, which is the one where we did our fundraiser for, right? There's more religious groups on campus than any other student organization, period, right? It's all, I mean, different denominations of groups, but also just did student activities. And when you're a secular student on a campus like that, it feels actively hostile. Like you just don't feel comfortable there. And I know people will say, well, look, you can be open about your beliefs. You can say what you want. It's a college campus, right? But it's not the same when all of your friends are part of these organizations and all of them are part of things that actively say how bad of a person you are, right, for not being a believer, right? Like there is active discrimination against secular students, right? And it's not as talked about because they're a minority, but it's definitely there. I know I definitely felt it when I was in school, and I'm really glad that organizations like SSA exist to kind of counteract that a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say I think the big thing we hear now is Christian students just screaming about and lawsuits
Yeah.
about how
Yeah.
discriminated they
Yeah.
are against on campus, and our students are
Yeah.
like, "You have to be kidding me!"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just name any one thing that there just isn't any.
Yeah. A&M has a real problem with with not enough Christian students on campus or whatever, right? Yeah. It's
Yeah. Well, we often, I think to you, like, there's often like 120 different religious organizations, and obviously
Mhm.
one, secular group on campus. So
Yeah.
the disparity is huge. I think the other thing we're starting to see in the sort of the fake free speech laws, which are
Mm.
really just happening on campus, and Texas has that as well, which really are put in place to privilege primarily Christian students to be able to openly discriminate. But we're seeing in Florida, especially, Proud Boy type groups come onto campus,
Yeah.
harassing our students who are out like tabling, harassing the Black students, harassing the Jewish students, harassing the LGBT students, like openly on campus. And so this is some of like the real world effects of these laws that are, a lot of conservative states are putting into place.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, there's been a lot going on recently with protests and stuff on college campuses. It's we were kind of talking about this before the show. It's hard to exactly discuss how much we can actually get into that as a nonprofit because there are certain laws that affect, in the same way that we can't actively talk about political parties because we're a nonprofit and we don't want to violate that. Wish churches followed the same thing, but hey, that's what we do. There are anti-Israeli laws, specifically in Texas, where you can't, sort of actively, I guess, what's the word? Disparage, right, Israeli-owned businesses and stuff. So it might be difficult for us to talk about, but it's definitely a thing that's happening. And we definitely have feelings about it. If you want to know, follow us on Twitter or whatever. You probably can guess. But with all the recent protests and stuff going on, have you been seeing that with your SSA groups? What have your SSA groups been doing in response?
And I think the very beginning of the war, a lot of our chapters actually started bringing together Muslim and Jewish students and having like developing and hosting discussions. Like, let's talk about this. And I think on college campuses, you often will have the professors will openly acknowledge that the good stuff about the society and sort of the bad history and why things have come. So you can sort of, I think, have an intellectual conversation and really being able to dissect it. Like, yeah, this is good, this is not, and this is the outcome of, or this was proposed in a good sense, but this is the ultimate outcome and how we're looking at, human rights and abuses and discrimination and those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
really proud about about the chapters who really delved into that. They really took it with a lot of care and making sure it wasn't against Jewish students or against Muslim students. They really wanted to be a beneficial conversation. So that's great. More recently, we've had students who we've been contacting who will be coming to our conference and they're planning like, hey, are you fundraising? Like, how's it going? And they're like, oh, yeah, I was arrested on campus because I was at the protests.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
our part of our mission is like, what is your activism and how are you living this out? So, we expected that this would be sort of happening. And for us, it's a very much, I think, a free speech issue as far as on the protests. And so we've been sort of relaying information like, what is legal? What is free speech? What are your rights? Like trespassing, technically, no, that's not protected by free speech. However, this is. So just making sure students are aware of what their rights are and what are the implications so that they can make informed, intelligent decisions.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And you said something earlier in the show that I know what you mean when you're talking about this, but maybe for our international audience, can you go into this further? You talked about fake free speech laws. Can you explain a little bit what you mean by that?
Yeah, so a lot of what we've seen in especially conservative areas and states in the last couple of years is the enactment of student free speech laws and parental rights laws. And at heart, those sound like things that most of the nation would embrace. But at the heart of them, it's for the free speech laws, it's really a way to promote Christian nationalism and allowing oftentimes Christian people to have their speech at the expense and discrimination of others. And parental rights laws are very much where Christian parents get to decide what everyone else gets to read or listen to, or books that are available, history classes, based on their Christian values. So it's meant to privilege. It's not meant to really protect.
Yeah, an example of that would be for LGBT topics in a classroom, right? The Christian might say, "Oh, well, we should teach the Christian point of view about what LGBT people are," I guess, and versus what the rest of the world has to say. Or recently too, I mean, it used to be, 10, 20 years ago, there was much bigger talk about evolution and creationism in schools, but this has kind of come around using this similar sort of rhetorical tactic of saying, well, wait a minute, if we're not teaching about creationism, that's kind of against our ability to, our free speech, I guess, is talking about this other perspective. So it's kind of a multifaceted sort of strategy to get a lot of Christian nationalist talking points, into school spaces, right?
Yeah, definitely. Very much so.
Yeah. So that's bad. Obviously, we don't like that. So really glad people are doing stuff to talk about. Can you talk about recently too, and maybe after this we might get to some calls. I want to know, what are some successes that SSA has had on some of its campuses recently? Can you speak to just some of the stuff that the students have been doing?
Sure, and I think the national organization, we are still in a lawsuit with the Department of Education. So where Christian students are allowed to discriminate against other students on campus, and Betsy DeVos put in so they also get public money in the form of campus activity fees. So we're actually, after trying to settle with the Department of, I'm making broad generalizations here, settle with the Department of Ed, we're going back to the lawsuit. This is going before a judge. So they've already written the policy that reverses that. And so we're like, just put it in place. So hopefully that is going to happen sooner than later. It's been 2 years. The students at West Texas A&M University are suing the president. So far things have not been going their way. And again, free speech comes into place, and the judge said that the president was not instilling his religious values in the situation. So he wasn't violating the separation of church and state at public university, even though he said God said this in the Bible and like multiple times. But I think one of the best stories is another from Texas, and that happens to be San Antonio again. So when Texas, of course, almost completely, got rid of abortion, reproductive care, they were in protest on campus so that the student health center would still provide reproductive health care to students. And so they there's some successes there, which was great. Other things went away. And so, and we were sort of talking earlier, they don't care. They're just like, well, we're going to do this anyway.
Yeah.
So they ordered Plan B, and condoms and dental dams and all sorts of stuff. And so they're actually handing out free Plan B on campus to any student who wants it. So, and a big part of, in states where it's much more of an issue, make sure that if you have a situation where you're going to be needing that, make sure that you have it ahead of time. So really sort of giving the big finger to Texas and the campus, like, okay, fine, we'll just hand it out.
As a Texan, you have the right to do, I think, fully. I give you permission. I'll give you a holy howdy. I don't know, something, a blessing of some kind for that. But yeah, absolutely. So yeah, SSA, not messing around, folks. Straight up fighting the Department of Education. So, not one of those organizations that's like, yeah, we should do this thing. No, they're doing it. Okay, they're walking the walk, which is really awesome. But Kevin, this is a call-in show, so you want to talk to some folks?
Let's call in.
Okay, let's do it. Before we do that, of course, I have to give a shout out to the patron of the week, because every single week I'm always giving a shout out to one of you guys that donates on tiny.cc/PatreonTW. I, of course, want to thank everybody that donates to the show, but this week's patron of the week is going to be Dawn Nelson. Thank you so much, Dawn Nelson, for donating, and thank you to everybody that has decided to donate. You guys rock. And of course, as always, if you want to become a member, you can hit the join button on YouTube if you're watching this, or if you want to give us a super chat while you're watching us right now, we can read some super chats as long as they are, of course, YouTube appropriate. So with that out of the way, Kevin, let's talk to some folks. We have a caller from Ireland. We've got Jerry wanting to talk to us. Jerry from Ireland, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Dan. Before I get into my little question, Dan, nice to see you. I enjoyed your deconstruction with Anthony.
Thank you.
Kevin, yeah, you're welcome. I hope you can understand my Irish accent.
We can totally understand it so far. You are good to go.
Kevin, at the start of the show, I heard you talking about the religion trying to creep into the school system in America. And, being the optimist that I am, I thought that Kitzmiller read over would kind of have settled that for once and for all. But I'm just wondering, are the religious, are they still trying to get their claws into schools?
Well, by far, and I think as young people right now are almost 50% non-religious. And so as they're watching the percentage of non-religious people grow, as the United States is becoming more and more pluralistic, and where the percentage of white people will actually be less than the percentage of people of color in the United States, I think the fear of losing power and privilege, especially by white Christian men, is overwhelming them. And so the obscene amount of money that they are throwing at taking over school boards and banning books and legislation that takes away LGBT rights, and I mean, you name it. The money that they're throwing out this is maddening. And so when one state sort of starts something and gets a law in, like the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, then Texas goes and ups it, and then Missouri goes, we're going to do even better. When Texas started its law that allowed chaplains, with no background checks, to come in and be counselors in schools, no degrees, no background checks. So
Sure.
Other states started doing that as well. So we continue to see their fervor and pushing this in the public system. school vouchers is a huge thing. And if you really want to scare yourself about sort of the next potential step that could be happening in American politics, go read Project 2025.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tell you this, Jerry. Again, like in my mind, I wasn't a part of like atheism or whatever, or activism, 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. But a lot of it, again, was the kind of focus on, creationism in schools, right? I mean, I think that was like maybe one of the bigger focuses. Now it's kind of everything. Now we're talking about LGBT rights. We're talking about science education, obviously. But we're also talking about like, this sort of like free speech debate of basically being able to teach like Christianity in schools. I mean, that's really what people want to do. The overreach that some organizations really want to have in public schools is so jaw-dropping. It almost sounds unreal. It almost sounds evil, to be honest with you. But it's totally real. It's totally documented that, yeah, these are the aims in which groups want to go at and get this stuff in school. And if you told someone 5 years ago, yeah, we weren't going to have Roe v. Wade anymore, I'm sure they think that was crazy too. But that obviously is dropped. So there is a real fight that has to happen in maintaining the already tenuous balance or lack thereof that we have between church and state separation. And that's definitely why organizations like SSA exist.
So the so-called wedge strategy is still ongoing. I guess we're lucky here in Ireland. The Catholic Church is on its knees, if not more, and it's lost its influence totally. Like, I'm 66. When I was growing up, Ireland was basically a theocracy.
Yeah.
Just two things that kind of correlate with what you were saying there. In the last couple of years, there were two issues that came up here in Ireland. One was a teacher in a college up in the west of Ireland. His first name was Enoch. That should give you a clue. And he was very homophobic in the school, in the college. He got put on leave and was told to stay off the college grounds, but he kept coming back. Eventually, he got arrested, and eventually he got fired.
See, in the United States, we're hiring those guys as deans of universities and stuff. Like that's kind of what's happening. It's just like some people are really up in arms about the sort of woke agenda that's happening in schools. That's always kind of been a thing. Like, meanwhile, the absolute erosion of people's rights and the absolute erosion of a more objective science-based curriculum and more objective understanding of history. Oh my God, I didn't even talk about that part of it. It's all of that is a debate that's happening every day, and it is definitely affecting American school systems. So it's pretty rough. It's not great. But
No,
we're trying.
Like, I've been an atheist for over 50 years. And it's pretty easy for me to be an atheist here in Ireland. Ireland is getting very secular. But I'm, from an outsider looking in, I'm amazed that America is the world's number one superpower, and yet you've got this insidious fundamentalist religious people trying to influence every part of American life. And it's frightening.
Yeah, it's definitely frightening for us too. Lobbying is a hell of a drug. I don't know. It's a hell of a thing, but they got a lot of money and they're really pushing for it. Kevin can speak more to that than I can.
And I think, and it's beyond even lobbying. It's completely taking over. And we were at one of the secular meetings. We actually had two of the leadership of Humanist International here in the United States, and we had a presentation just about what was really happening in the background of the United States and how well organized this was. And I would have to say, they were both completely shocked at the sort of the money and influence and organization that's happening right now in the United States, which is somewhat a shame. I feel like we're supposed to be like the example. We're supposed to be the star, the shrining of separation of church and state, and and real freedom and those sorts of things. And I feel like we're just doing a disservice to the rest of the world, and unfortunately, exporting a lot of just the craziness and vitriol and bad organization that are unfortunately affecting other countries at this point.
You're right. Our number one American export is crazy, I think, at the moment. It is really bad. It's weird when you see like Australian QAnon folks or whatever, like folks that are like into American conspiracy theories that like don't even live here. Like that's how much of an influence we apparently are to people, and it's not even a good one. I don't know. It's very disappointing. But yeah, Jerry, was there any other questions you wanted to ask Kevin about this specifically?
Just that I empathize with all atheists in America, because you've got more churches than we have houses here in Ireland in one city in America.
Yeah, you're probably right.
near a large, yeah, I live near a pretty large town for Ireland, about 35,000, and there are 2 churches.
Yeah. Well, I think the hopeful thing for us is today's youth, one, are just realizing the hypocrisy of what they're seeing with sort of the perversion of religion and trying to really inject it into government and society and force people to believe your Christian beliefs. The more and more young people that are becoming non-religious, this as we go forward and how that affects women's rights and LGBT rights and the environment, even it gets down to things like voting, who can vote and who can get financial aid on campus. That's some of the things that the conservatives are attacking. So I'm very hopeful about the young population coming up, and the world as they see it is going to be a much better one. And I think much more in the democracy and pluralism and freedom that America, the United States, is supposed to exhibit.
I hope so. God, I hope so. Hopefully we don't arrest them all, But anyway, Jerry, thanks so much for your call. Appreciate you supporting the show by calling. And great questions all around. I do have some super chats that I need to get to that actually came in earlier, and I didn't see it until we started taking our first call. So I got a couple here. One is from Gayest Husky, who gave $4.99 and said, "Man's wisdom is folly to God equals thought-stopping cliche. Even Jehovah's Witnesses churches use it, as do the Moonies. Tell that to a funny next time they use it." And yeah, if you guys aren't familiar with the term, a thought-terminating cliche is kind of like saying something like, "It is what it is." When somebody's responding to something being bad, it is what it is. It's kind of a phrase that's supposed to make you stop thinking about something that could definitely be different, or it could be changed, or could be logically thought of in a different way. So yeah, man's wisdom is folly to God. Definitely a thought terminating cliche. I agree with that. Another super chat from Kelly Laughlin, member of 2 years, gave $5 saying, "Brisk, brave brigadiers brandished broad, bright blades, blunderbusses, and bludgeons, balancing them badly." So yeah, take that, Kelly. I think I just nailed that first try. So
I would not be able to do that.
I see what you're pulling. I see what you're doing there. All right. And I don't know if I like it, but thanks for donating anyway, Kelly. We love you. Appreciate it. David Tech is now a new member and gifted 5 Truth Wanted memberships. which is awesome. Thank you so much, David Tech, for doing that. And last but not least, we got a donation from Puck, who gave $5 and said, the reason I fight against the religious thinking is because people who believe they have direct access to a divine authority vote in my jurisdiction. And that is a great succinct way to put it. I've definitely never thought about my activism as putting other people down or telling other people they're stupid or just, doing all the nasty stuff. It really is just like, no, I live in this country too, and I have a different perspective on things, and I think that my voice should be heard about it. And it just so happens that my perspective is also, the more inclusive one, I guess, because other people's perspectives, not quite as inclusive. But anyway, that's just my take on that. Another quick announcement I will say that I think is the first time we were talking about this on Truth Wanted, although I could be wrong. I might have missed it a week or two ago. But the Atheist Community of Austin's Back Cruise is officially happening. So if you want to come down to Texas and see what that's all about, you can do it. It's on August 24th. Forrest Valkai, J. Mike, Secular Rarity, Jimmy Jr., and I will be there along with other familiar faces in attendance. If you don't know this, we have a river here in Austin that has bats that come out from under a bridge. And we basically get on a little cruise boat and go watch the bats and just kind of hang out and have a good time. So go to tiny.cc/backcruise if you want to get tickets for that. And also, one last thing, and I'll move on. If you want to hear the show in audio only form, just go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts for all of the latest shows in an audio format. And I'll leave it at that. Let's keep going with the calls. We have a call from Colorado. This is Logan from Colorado wanting to talk to us. Logan, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, how's it going, Dan? How's it going, Kevin? It's nice talking to you guys. Dan, you've helped me a lot with my deconversion and everything. I've been an atheist for about 1.5 years now, but there's one thing on my mind that I can't get over the fear of. Is it's like just the fear of just death, just the fear of not existing anymore. And I know it's kind of a gloomy subject, but just wanted to hear you guys' opinions and stuff on that. And I appreciate everything you do through the Secular Student Alliance. Kevin, thank you so much for doing that. I just wanted to get you guys' words on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll ask this first. Logan, what makes you afraid of death? What's going through your head right now about it?
So I would say I've been an atheist for about 1.5 years, kind of a crazy transition. It's just seeing that and it definitely has made my life feel more special and everything like that. But it's that notice that wasn't before when I was a Christian, with me just realizing that my friends and my family that are all beside me now won't be one day, and I won't be here one day. And it's just every once in a while when I'm still and not thinking about much, it kind of creeps in the back of my mind and stuff like that. And I just wondered how you guys kind of got over that, or maybe if you're still dealing with it.
Yeah, Kevin, you want to speak to this first?
Well, yeah, and I think one of the words you mentioned was special. And I think, if you think of all the planets in the solar system and the amount, yes, I think there's life outside of our planet. May look different, but I think there is. But how special is that we have this, and and just our level of consciousness and those sorts of things. That is special. So I think one of the things that we always say is, enjoy it. You're here on this earth for a short time. Enjoy your life, make it good for you, make it good for other people, make it the world a better place before you leave. That's our big focus. And I think the uncertainty that we think of, like what happens when we die, I think there's often that sense that there's pain. Obviously, hopefully not. I've always said I'd love to go out in my sleep. If I'm in an operation and something happens, I told my husband, don't wake me up. I will never know. And I'm completely fine with that. But I think there's always that uncertainty of what could happen. again, hopefully it's a peaceful transition into death. But there is sort of this special thing that we get to be here and experience this time. Enjoy that while you have it. And I did, growing up Catholic, I did have a nun tell me, she's like, look, I think if for those people who are more recently atheists, and you may like, what if there is an afterlife, and what if there is a God? And she said, don't worry about it. She goes, everyone gets into heaven. It doesn't matter what you did. So even if you're an atheist, and you don't believe, if it's happening, you're still in. You've still got your golden ticket.
Yeah, according to that nun, at least. So if you,
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I like that. A death. I mean, this is why atheism is unpopular. This is one of the biggest reasons. We have no we can't give you. Yeah, there's a nice happy place. There's a nice farm down the road that you get to go to and chill out in your afterlife. We don't get that. We don't get easy answers to this. And so you really have to do a really big cognitive reframing when it comes to ideas like death. And it's not something that I think happens overnight, especially if you grow up Christian and you was told a different story about what happens and you're kind of figuring this out. For me, it was kind of terrifying. I remember having nightmares thinking that I might be wrong. That was a real big thing for me. What if I'm wrong and I'm going to go to hell and I'm going to burn for all of eternity and this kind of thing. So this is going to sound so silly, but I kind of started listening more to the song by Death Cab for Cutie, which was I'll Follow You Into the Dark. And I realized this song is about a guy who is going to love this person for the rest of their days and maybe beyond if they're allowed to do that. But no matter where they go in the afterlife, they're going to be there for that person. And I think something in my brain clicked after I kind of really sunk in the message of that song, because I realized that's what it means to truly love someone, to truly have a real honest to God, sans God, right? Honest to whatever relationship with another human being is realizing this is all you got. There's no other thing after this. It's just, this is it. And that kind of makes life even more meaningful to me, because as a Christian, you kind of get to say, well, it didn't work out for me now, but maybe there's the next life, or maybe I'm, going through this hard thing now, but there's always heaven to look forward to. But instead, you kind of just have this. And I guess you could be a hedonist. I guess you could just do what you want. But how much more meaningful is it when you actually get to live a life serving other people or helping other people or spending it with the people that you love? There's something to me that gives me peace when I think about that, because I'd rather live in that universe where my actions are more meaningful to the people around me than in the universe where there's an afterlife and ultimately nothing I did on earth really actually mattered in the end, right? So that's something that gives me peace, but it's something you got to figure out for yourself, right? I don't know what goes on in your brain when you're talking about death or what your anxiety comes from. Obviously, Christianity plays a part of it, but it's also something that we kind of have to answer for ourselves. So anyway, I think that's my take on it. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, I 100% agree. That was beautifully said. And I think it really makes life more beautiful when you're able to make someone else's day beautiful. You're able to permeate through all of the sadness maybe they're going through and just make their day just that much brighter. And I think that definitely adds just so much beauty to just a temporary life. And I think part of it is the death that I do fear is part of when I used to fear hell. And I think part of it will kind of fade away as I get more away from the pulling away from Christianity, because I did used to fear hell really, really badly, but I'm getting out of those. I'm getting out of that feeling. So I think maybe that has somewhat to do with it, but I think that's beautifully said. I think if you can make someone's day better and you can transpire hope and transpire just decent humanity in someone's day, that's all we can do. And that's a beautiful thing. I 100% agree.
Awesome. Well, I hope that can give you at least some peace, Logan. And I'm not going to say either that it's not something I don't think about, right? That it doesn't come up time to time. I think if most of us were honest, Probably all of us could say that, or at least a lot of us. But at least we can be honest, right? At least we don't have to lie to ourselves and make something up. I'd rather do that too, right? I'd rather be honest with myself and the folks around me than pretend like something else is different. So that's what helps me. Kevin, do you have any final thoughts on this?
I think it's okay not to know.
Mm, mm.
The reality is if we don't know, and that's okay. Is we don't, we fully don't know how the universe started, and that's okay. Like, we continue to find things out. And I think the other thing, growing up as a gay man in the South, I was told I was going to hell many a time.
Yeah.
And I know lots. If I'm going, I know lots of other people who are going to be there, and we're going to have a good time because there are a lot of
Yeah.
people I like. So
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm still good with that.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to think about it too. Logan, any other thoughts?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I'll wrap it up here, and I just wanted to say, thank you so much, guys. You guys help a lot. Thank you so much, Kevin. The first time speaking to both of you guys. You guys are both terrific people, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything you guys do, and you guys are making a change in the world that I one day hope to make. So I just wanted to appreciate everything. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you guys have done.
Oh,
Thanks,
well, thank you, Logan. That's really sweet. And you know what? You get to call into the show today, so maybe this call can help somebody else, right? So you are helping people ultimately, I think, even just by participating in the show. So thanks so much, I was about to say Kevin. Thanks so much, Logan, for calling in. Really appreciate that, and very, very sweet message towards the end there. We do have some open lines right now, folks. So if you want to call in, we got plenty of room for you. Come on in, and we want to talk to you guys while we are awaiting other people to fill up those lines. I do have another super chat from Jerry O'Connor, who gave 10 pounds and said, "Thanks for taking my call, guys. Appreciate you." Thank you so much, Jerry. That's so nice for you to donate after calling. And I also have a few other announcements that I can give out there. If you've ever said to yourself, "Gosh, I love the ACA. I think it's the coolest thing ever, and I just want it zapped into my brain 24/7. You actually can do that if you want to. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but you can do it. There is a 24-hour live stream of Atheist Experience and another 24-hour live stream of Talk Heathen that you can go to, which streams all of the previous shows and clips and specials from the 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience, and also the many seasons of Talk Heathen. One thing that's really great, and a lot of people have commented, is that there's a great culture around these streams. You can talk to a lot of people from around the world who are watching it at the same time. And, there's interesting debates and conversations that happen. So that's another reason to check that out. You can go to tiny.cc/AXPTV or tiny.cc/HeathenTV to join in on the fun. And last but not least, I have to thank the awesome, amazing crew that helped make the show happen every week. There's our crew cam. And we got shots from the library right now, too. People, I don't know what's going on. What are they playing? Oh, they're walking away. This is kind of voyeuristic. I don't know if I like that, actually, that we showed shots of them. That's all crew people, though. Don't worry. That is definitely all crew people. So shout outs to the crew that helped make the show happen. You guys rock. Let's go back to you, Kevin. We talked about some of the recent successes that have been happening with SSA, and also some of the recent challenges that have been going on with the SSA. And you have this leadership conference that's coming up. Maybe can you talk a little bit about what that conference is all about and what it's designed to do?
Sure, and I think a lot of people are, they go to a business conference or one that has to do with something that they're interested in, and our conference is, specific for student leaders, non-religious students to come together all across the country. So as you mentioned before, Dan, mostly students in college universities. We do have high school students who are coming as well, and who always have been there. But it's really, so it's a sort of extended weekend to come in. We have plenary sessions, so speakers, panels from the secular movement in talking about separation of church issues. And then something that's a little bit more special about the SSA conference is we have a series of breakout sessions, so workshops, trainings, presentations, things that really, leadership development, things that really benefit the student personally, and for their personal growth, or sort of developing their knowledge about secular issues, atheism, agnosticism, whatever, and then also sort of to really activate their activism, whether that's atheist, non-religious issues, or environmentalism, or whatever that is. So we really want to take that part of the special thing. I think the key thing is the interaction that happens with the students, and all of a sudden, if you're a small group in Alabama, and all of a sudden you come in and now you're in this, like, a room just full of other students who are doing the exact same thing, who are thinking like you, the empowerment that comes from that, I think, is one of the most special things that happens at our conference.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's great. When you think of what you don't think of when you say the word secular, you don't think of maybe Utah, or you don't think of, I don't know, Minnesota or Texas or Louisiana, but those are the groups that show up because, that's why they're there. They want to make sure that other people know that they exist, right? And so that's when you tend to see, at least in my experience, a lot of where that passion comes from is from these groups that do exist and want to show their campuses that, hey, there's a group of people that maybe are against the culture, but not doing anything nefarious, not doing anything illegal or harmful, but just one, promoting that they exist, and two, ensuring that separation of church and state is happening on campuses, which honestly gets broken like almost every day across the country, right? So yeah, it's a very cool conference to see. And again, more information about that can be found on the SSA website. But that's the current thing that's going on with SSA. So yeah, we still have some open lines right now, Kevin. So if there's anything else from the SSA that you want to talk about, maybe some fun stories or something, that'd be cool.
Well, when you were talking, so you interesting mentioned Utah and Texas, and so some of our largest chapters have actually been from Utah. And so if you think the large Mormon population and just how pervasive, that is within the state, so really finding that sort of special place to come together with friends, a chapter of 150 is easy in the past in Utah. And Texas happens to be one of our most active places with chapters who are just everything that's been happening in the state, really making sure that they're passionate about that and fighting against that, and making sure that Texas is still living up to the ideals of actually freedom for everyone, and not being a theocracy of a state. So
what's up with that? We got Atheist Community of Austin, which is like probably one of the most, well-known atheist organizations. And then you got like all these folks representing Texas at the SSA conference. Why are we the leading atheist folks, Texans in America? Isn't that weird? I just find so many other content creators also are from Texas or currently live in Texas. It's very bizarre.
Texas is a big state, and I think, and you also have, obviously, California, New York, but there's not that same, you don't have that same like fight for existence that you do in Texas. And so you understand the importance of that. So, you understand the prevalence. And so, it even makes it, I think, more important. And when we do our scholarships applications, we ask sort of like, what was your journey into, secularism or the separation of church and state? Because we have religious students who apply, and we've had religious students in the past who have gotten scholarships because of their activism about church-state separation. But we oftentimes, the podcasts and YouTube, ACA, Seth Andrews, those that we are oftentimes, cited as sort of the introduction into non-religion, and being able to hear those stories and those sort of things. So, that's the same sort of thing. I think the podcast community that you have is what we sort of get to experience in person at the SSA conference in a much more personal sort of level.
Heck yeah. I like it. And you're right. You know what, Texans, I think we just grew up with it. So it's a bigger deal. It really is just a bigger deal when when you're living that life. Nothing like Austin. That's the weirdest part too. Now living in Austin, it's so weird seeing how different the rest of Texas is. And I always think about that whenever I go back home. Growing up in Waco, I've told, this story to my audience a million times and they already know it, but it does hit different. There's nothing else I can say. You guys should have a separate scholarship just for Texas. It should just be the Texas scholarship.
We have two. The FACT. Oh, sure, I can't think of there. So FACT in Texas. I can't think of Free Thought something. And then Houston Oasis. Both local groups sponsor specific scholarships for students in Texas. So we have,
nice.
It happened in Florida, in New Jersey, in Colorado, in California, in Arizona, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. So like all across the state, we have local groups who are saying supporting non-religious students is really important. We want to support their activism. So we're going to sponsor a scholarship. So we actually, SSA provides scholarships, but we also have a bunch of other scholarships that are, we do a joint with Black non-believers and Hispanic free thinkers. So, a secular woman came on this year and is looking for, an activist that's like, doing stuff with gender equality. So we do a lot of variety of scholarships because of a lot of assistance from local groups and other organizations who really know supporting secular students, non-religious students is important.
Nice. That's awesome. And again, I've said this before, but I just really like that. I mean, you got like every SSA conference I've been to, it's like a list of, here's all the things happening on campus and here's what we've done about it. And not every story is going to be a major win, but it's a fight. Like it's actually happening. And that's so important. And like real major wins have happened across campuses because of SSA. And solely because of SSA, I might add, in some cases, which is really, really cool. So we do have some other callers that want to talk to us. So let's get back into that. We got Kevin, who wants to talk to us from New Mexico. Kevin, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course. What'd you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, so... I know you guys, especially on the Friday show, talk about conspiracies. People bring some pretty crazy ones. Nowadays, this really prominent flat Earth thing
We certainly do.
Comes up.
Mm-hmm.
People like you guys and me, we wonder what would be the motivation for tens of millions of scientists and governments for centuries trying to pull off this kind of a huge conspiracy. It just seems so absurd. And that doesn't seem to get a lot of traction with these folks. But what about the potential of religion being a conspiracy? Because religion really has in the past had a strong foothold in governments, and people nowadays are trying to get their religions implanted in our government, as deeply as they can. That seems like a really good potential for an investigation of a conspiracy if the conspiracy theorists are really serious about this stuff. What do you think?
You're totally right about this. Kevin can really speak to this. Kevin, you take this first.
Yeah. I mean, it's even where do you even start this one? So, I mean, what we really see happening with religion coming in is it's really every single layer. And we sort of mentioned Project 2025, and that is the conservative plan to take over the federal government, get rid of lots of the regulation and departments so that's we don't have Overwatch, and then really change everything to platform Christianity moving forward. And it's interesting that there are obviously super wealthy people who are funding this. You've got conservative politicians who probably don't believe that this is the best thing for the United States, but are going to actively push this. Then you also have the people who are voting this in, or vote for these individuals to put them sort of in the office, when the reality is most of these things will financially, service-wise, damage them as well. So I think when you look at the sort of cognitive dissonance that allows this to happen on such a large scale level, it's sort of a bit mind-boggling.
Yeah, I think a big reason why you don't see that same level of skepticism is because, as Christians in particular, you are taught a victim narrative. Like, you are taught that the world is kind of out to get you, and that they're going to be, saying things about you, or you're going to be the weird kid in the classroom that still believes in God, even though all of the other kids in the classroom probably also believe in God. Like, there's a real narrative of persecution that Christians pretend like is happening. And I was a believer of this too. I really thought, oh, I'm a minority in the world for having the beliefs that I do. I mean, yes, like, they're broadly speaking, obviously, like, media in general has gotten to display more points of view and more representation from non-Christian communities, and so Christians see that as an attack. But if you're looking at, like, actual government, right, if you're looking at a lot of legislation, that is not the case. We are seeing tons of lobbying interests for Christian nationalist, interests, right? And when Kevin's talking about, like, Project 2025, that's not a conspiracy. That's, like, on paper. That's, like, this is their legit agenda. Like, you can go look it up. Like, they have that publicly stated. What's with a lot of conspiracy stuff, it's always, strange, like, unstated principles about things, right? It's always like some other master secret thing going on. QAnon was, when in its biggest height, was really crazy about this, right? They're talking about, like, kids being in underground bunkers and using their blood to fuel the rich via adrenochrome to keep them young, right? Like, I mean, it was, like, real out there stuff. Meanwhile, we are seeing, like, an active erosion of rights and principles just by like really weird wedge issues, like the woke debate in schools, right? This is like a thing that's coming up because traditionally conservative folks are using it as a ploy to get their own agendas put in schools, right? So it is really fascinating to see, like, yeah, how come the same skeptical audience doesn't talk about that? And I think part of it is, yeah, just that victim narrative that Christians really give themselves, as far as their relationship with the rest of the world. But anyway, that's a lot of talking from me. What do you think about that?
Well, what I had been thinking about is, if you think way back to when a conspiracy like flat Earth, or the science is all banding together to fool all the population of the planet, decades and centuries ago. What if decades and centuries ago religious leaders said, something? We know that there's really no God, but we figured out a way to get people to give us power, and so that actually would be a conspiracy. The conspirators who would start this, the science is in this direction. They would know that they're fooling people. That's why it's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
They designed a conspiracy, and what if religious people thought, hey, we know how to get power. We can get, what we want. We can get people to do what we want them to do. We can even figure out how to enslave other people to do our work for us based on our religion. And somehow people seem to believe us when we tell them these stories. So let's just keep it going. I mean, it's as legitimate as these other broad conspiracy theories that we hear about.
Yeah. To be fair, there is a culture of that kind of thinking against the Catholic Church, and is, like, kind of prevalent among some Protestant Christians. There's definitely a lot of Christians that think, like, the Pope is, like, the Antichrist or whatever, right? Or, there's stuff like that happening. But yeah, it is kind of interesting that you don't hear that being the more common thing.
If you go back to look at Incan civilization, and when the way that the cities were designed and the temples were designed, they were at specific angles so that and the leaders who were talking to God would first work with the architects and the people who were and the astronomers who were looking at the stars. And so they're like, well, if you're building a new temple, build it here and build this wall at this angle, because on this day the sun's going to hit it and it's going to light up red. And they would then, the astronomers would come and say, hey, in 2 days you probably want to be talking to God and have him give you the sign, because that side of that temple is going to light up red. So this is leaders using religion and working with scientists to have this conspiracy to promote, one, the leader's divineness and their relationship with a God they know had nothing to do with God.
Yeah, it's true.
What's really interesting about that is that nowadays it's the real scientists who can tell you when the eclipse is going to happen, like to the second, based on where you're standing on the planet. And yet they're not the ones who are pushing religion, and the people who are pushing something like flat Earth, they can't make any predictions, but they're the ones who are saying that the scientists are involved in the conspiracy. It's just so backwards, which obviously we already know that, but
yeah. They come afterwards and say that, it's because God was angry about the gays, or God was angry about trans rights, or God was angry about whatever. So they just flip it around and use it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
That's
easy to do it that way.
Yeah, there's so much to be said about this particular topic, because you can just get lost in like a lot of rabbit holes when talking about this. Okay, so like for example, right, the Freemason movement, like a lot of people don't realize how far back, first of all, Freemasonry goes, but secondly, Freemasonry conspiracies go. That shit was around since the very beginning. Like there was a time in this country where your active identification, whether you were anti or pro secret organizations, like mattered as to whether somebody would vote for you. People really used to be up in arms about these kinds of things. And I don't know, it just kind of ebbs and flows. Like, I mean, obviously recently it's the QAnon stuff, right? It's like, I don't know. There's always going to be an element of society, it feels like, that is really just going to push for some sort of secret organization doing stuff. And it's never the stuff that's like already in front of us. It just doesn't seem to line up. I don't know. Something about human beings that really think that way,
Well, there's that groupthink for people who are willing to believe in their God claims without sufficient evidence that somebody like me requires. They also think that other people don't need evidence, and so they just think that, hey, if it seems like something to complain about and to turn into a conspiracy, conspiracy theory to spread, well, then we might as well just call it a conspiracy, because everybody's out there not requiring evidence just like us. But that doesn't work for me. It simply never has. Even when I was, a kid going to church, it didn't work for me. So
yeah. And of course, I say this all the time. Conspiracies have happened, do happen, and will continue to happen on multiple levels, right? Not just big stuff, small stuff too. It happens. That's, court cases reveal this kind of stuff all the time. It's just like the reason why we know about it is because like it does tend to go through a court of law, or if it doesn't, like there is other evidence that journalists can uncover, or real sources of information can describe real events that have happened, and again, not like children underground in bunkers or whatever, so yeah, I wish we could kind of show that to people, but hey, that's why this show exists. At least I try. Gosh knows I try. But anyway, I think Kevin, we'll go ahead and let you go unless you had any other thoughts or questions you wanted to give us.
Just that I think emphasizing the need for just being skeptical is a really basic start for people, and I know I didn't get that when I was a kid, so I'm glad you guys are doing that now.
Man, I didn't either, but I'm trying to catch up. You know what I mean? Trying to get that stuff out there, but we definitely feel the same way you do on that front, Kevin. Thanks so much for your call, and hope to hear from you again sometime. There's a lot to be said. I guess the Friday night show, as he put it, we are the show that talks about the conspiracies. To be honest, we don't talk about it enough. I mean, sometimes we talk a lot about Christian issues and stuff, which I'm totally down for. But I really intended for this show to be more focused on some of that weirder stuff. But when we do talk about it, it's great. I love it. Those are some of my favorite shows. Kevin, I have a treat for you, because I think we have some time to play a voicemail. If you don't know this, our number is a number you can call when the show is not available, and sometimes people leave us voicemails, and sometimes they're pretty funny. So I think we're gonna play one right now.
Yeah, I'm watching your show.
There we go.
I believe that You're a little bit frightened to know the truth. The Bible was rewritten. I don't call myself a Christian. I don't. The Bible, people interpret it the way they do, and God gives free choice to choose Him. You can do, in fact, if you don't choose God and you die and you go to heaven, you won't be punished because you're not knowledgeable and you haven't accepted Him because you don't know any better. I would be very afraid if I were you.
Whoa. Whoa. Bro, I'm getting threatened. That's crazy.
I almost thought she was in there saying it was okay, though. Like, if you don't know, then
yeah,
God
if I'm
accepts
ignorant.
you.
But she's saying I'm not. She's saying I'm not ignorant. She says I know better, I think.
Gotcha. 'Cause she got the zinger at the end there.
Yeah. And all the haters, they always love playing with the title. The show's called Truth Wanted, and it's always something like, "Oh, you don't really want the truth," or whatever. Oh, yeah, okay, I heard it before. You're not new. But yeah, no, that she's basically saying the quiet part out loud for Christianity, right?
Yes.
Which is, you need to listen to this, or there'll be consequences.
Well, and that's what you were talking about earlier. You need the fear to drive people to continue.
If there were no if there were no afterlife consequences or this life consequences, right, for Christianity, would Christianity be as popular as it is today? I have to say no, right? In my mind, it has. I mean, if people didn't have a fear element based on it, way more people would be less Christian, right?
I think
Absolutely.
religious in general.
Religious in general, sure, but there's still religions that maybe. Well, I don't know, but are there religions that don't have any negative consequences to a lack of belief? I guess it's kind of most of them, huh?
Yeah, as Buddhism is probably, and as probably the closest.
But even then, there's still consequences for bad karma.
Yeah,
right?
there is. Yep, there is.
So I don't know. There's something to be said about that. Yep. That's a interesting. I don't know what that lady's doing, but maybe she should watch the show more and see what we talk about. Because, yeah, I don't know. Maybe crew, if we got time for a screenshot, we should do like a screenshot next. That might be fun. Or if we have another voicemail, that's cool too. Just let me know in the chat here, crew, what we can do. But besides that, we can screenshot's good. Yep, they're telling me it's good. So let's put a screenshot on the screen here. This, of course, might be from an email we've gotten or a comment that we've received. So I haven't seen it yet. So Kevin, we're both seeing it for the first time. Let's take a look. Any second now. They're saying just 1 second. Crew is working. Oh, there we go. All right. So this is from a short saying, I know you might not believe, but I know you may not believe, but ... don't you miss him? Oh.
From Jesus at the top.
I think that from Jesus at the top, I think is a subtitle of me talking about Jesus. And so I guess the author of the comment is saying, even though I don't believe, don't I still miss Jesus? No, I don't miss Jesus, actually. So I think Jesus is kind of a narcissist. If anybody's telling you should worship them, they're a narcissist, straight up, right? So, that's my point here. I think if Jesus was around today, he would probably be compared to like David Koresh. He would probably be compared to somebody that would be so taboo in society. It would be weird to say that you followed him or cared about him at all. But the fact that he's 2,000 years old kind of gives him some leeway there. I don't know, Kevin, what do you think?
If you look at some of the things that Jesus did, like, if you go by the Bible, like throw in the capitalists, out of the temple, and hung out with the prostitutes, and I mean, Jesus is probably someone I would have now I would hang out with. So I think
I wouldn't hang out with anybody that says they're the son of God, Kevin. I don't know. That's just me.
I mean, that's the there's that part. I mean, that's a little bit of the crazier part. But some of the stuff he fed a lot of people. There were some good things that Jesus could have done compared to the stories that were written 100 years after he actually died. So
yeah, that's the problem, right? We'll never really know what Jesus was like, because every single piece of writing that we have about Jesus comes long after Jesus's death.
yes,
And most likely, according to scholars, doesn't come from firsthand accounts, right? Reasonably so. Comes from oral traditions or otherwise. So
right.
we're just hearing stories. He could have been anybody.
But if it was the Jesus of care for the poor and, accept the stranger, and, we're all like, we're all part of this one family, that's pretty liberal in our society nowadays.
It's the bare minimum that would take for me to hang out with somebody. He's also casting demons from people that are probably just suffering from mental illness,
But universal health care, like, the sick, the blind, like, he did it all.
But it's not even universal. It's only if you believe in him. If you don't believe in him, you don't get it. You become a second-class citizen in Jesus's mind, I think.
Yeah. There would have had a lot of people in that line, though, for the loaves and fishes and, like, I want my foot back, who didn't believe, were just hopeful. And if you got it, you're probably okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm giving Kevin a hard time here, but yeah, that part.
I'm looking at the better side. Side.
He's being an optimist about this, and you're right. That part's good. Feeding hungry people's good. I'll give you that much. But it's one of those things. We don't really know what Jesus was like. This could all be propaganda.
If there was a Jesus.
Yeah. If there was a Jesus. This all could be just exaggerations based on real things that happened, or just didn't happen at all, right? So who's to know what Jesus was really like? But anyway, I think now, Kevin, is a good time to give our closing thoughts, and I want people to give a final sort of. What am I saying? Give information for people as to where they can further find you. That's the words I'm trying to look for here, Kevin.
Wonderful. I'm happy to do that. Yeah. So I think for if of young people who are interested in getting involved with the Secular Student Alliance, the easiest place is secularstudents.org. Easy to find us there. Lots of information. It's easy to join, find a chapter. So we try to provide lots of information there. Of course, we're on our social media at Secular Students. Basically, if you're looking for that, you can find us just about anywhere. For people who are interested in supporting non-religious students, and again, we're talking by this presidential election, if the rates continue as they are, 50% of young people will be non-religious. And so we're really one of the only organizations solely specifically focused on secular non-religious youth and providing help and assistance and services and community for them. So you can go to our website, hit that donate button. So we'd love for you to make a donation. If you want to look at a specific chapter, so our chapter in San Antonio is desperately looking for some help in getting funds to come to our campus. In the sort of tributes or memorial, you can write that in, and we'll make sure that it goes to that. If you're an alumni and you're like, what, I was at a school in Utah, I would really want to do something and make sure it goes to some, one of the chapters in Utah, just write Utah in there, and we'll make sure that it gets to students that way. Phil Ferguson was I think he was on your show a little while ago. Mm-hmm. He's currently running a challenge. So if someone makes a monthly donation to us, $10 or up, or if you increase your current monthly donation, he and his wife Robin will match that. And so they'll donate $150 for a student to provide assistance to get to our conference. So lots of ways to help. And we always say our conference, why we've really focused today on it being for students. There's obviously not a lot of non-students that are there to support the students. But we're saying if you want to know what young people are talking about, if you want to see young people and what they're interested in and be able to talk with them, it's a great place to go because they're going to be there. And also for, there's lots of local secular, humanist, free thought communities all across the United States. And we have the Free Thoughts Society of Arkansas is going to be helping with the conference. We've also encouraged them, like, hey, send some of your leaders. We're talking about grassroots organizing. We're talking about leadership development. We're talking about putting activism into practice. There's lots of good practical skills for everyone to participate in as well. So so there's always that. And of course, I can't, we have our scholarships that are open now, secular activist scholarships. So if you know of a young person, or if you are a young person, please take a look at that. Share that information with other people, so that we can really, reward students and recognize that achievement of what they're doing with, a little bit of a scholarship to provide some assistance to them.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Kevin, so much for being on the show tonight and
pleasure.
contributing your thoughts. And thanks for talking about SSA. I think it's awesome. And so just as a reminder, folks at home, the prompt this week is, what's your guilty pleasure? Leave a comment below answering that. And if you're watching on YouTube, hey, liking and subscribing is also a cool thing that cool YouTubers say, and also lame ones. So you can decide which category you can place me in on that. But we are going to be wrapping things up for today. Kevin, words of wisdom. Any words of wisdom tonight for closing thoughts? Words of wisdom.
I really just make a difference in your local community, whether whatever that is. This is sort of the time when we really need it, and we is building those connections. But there's lots of people in need, so just find something in your local community to do, like this week, and just like that's a good thing to do.
I like that. Help out your local communities, folks. I'm Objectively Dan. Remember to always keep on the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.